Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. You're watching Indigo Tech Tutorials. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to build an app like Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, any other app where users are going to be selling their items and then connecting with each other in real life to make the transaction. So the cool thing about apps like this is you don't have to worry about adding in payment processing online because it's going to happen in person. So building this app is actually super simple. All you need to do is facilitate the user accounts and also the items that they're listing, which would have the images, the price that they're going to be selling them for, maybe a description. And then lastly, we would want to show them on the map so that you can find items that are close by to your location. And yeah, that's what we're going to be building in this video. So if you guys are excited, we're going to get straight into this. Also, if you watched my last video, I showed you how you could implement maps in a Rails app, but I just did it super basic. All I did is I showed you how to show the location of a certain item. But in this video, we're going to be going in more detail where we're going to be adding each item to the map and then displaying its location on an overall view map. So we're going to be using that in more detail. And yeah, I hope you guys are excited. Let's get straight into it. So first of all, I'm going to go over to the terminal and I'm going to generate a brand new Ruby on Rails app. And real quick, I'll just show you I'm on Ruby 3.42 and my Rails version is 8.02. So we're on the latest versions as of right now. Well, there might be a newer version because this was from February, but anyways, as long as you have a version newer than Rails 8, you should be able to follow along with this tutorial perfectly fine. So let's get straight into it by generating a brand new Rails app. We could do this by typing Rails new, and then we put the name of our app. So I'm just going to call this Craigslist, or how about we call it Ruby List? I don't even know if that makes sense, but Ruby List. And then we're going to do -C for Tailwind because I'm going to be using Tailwind. I think I'll also use Flowbyte for this tutorial. So if you're familiar with Flowbyte, they have tons of components for all different various UI features that you want to add. So let's go ahead and just keep this simple and do it with Tailwind. And then I'll add Flowbyte in a second. So I'm going to press enter to generate the app. And it's going to go through and generate our basic Ruby on Rails shell app. And then from there, we're going to implement all the features that we want to add. All right, so now that we have our app generated, I'm going to cd into it. And we can just start the server with bin dev. Because we're using Tailwind, we're going to use bin dev instead of Rails S, which is going to also start the Tailwind server. And then we can go to the browser and go over to localhost 3000 just to make sure that everything's working. And as you can see, we have the Rails logo. So we are good to go to start coding in our Ruby on Rails app. So now let's go back to the terminal and I'm going to open this up in a code editor by doing code dot, which will open this up in VS Code. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to set a route for our app. So if we go to config routes.rb, we don't have any routes in here yet. We need to set a route down here, which would go to whatever action we want to display as the home page. So for this, we might just keep it simple and add in the models first, and then we could just put the route to the index action for the post model. Because I think I'll just call it post maybe. All right, so first of all, we're going to want to add user accounts. That's where I'm going to start. So to add user accounts is super easy nowadays because there's a built-in authentication generator, which will add in everything you need for user authentication, including the user model. So all you have to run is in the terminal, we'll do railsg authentication, and this will add in the user accounts and all of the controllers and stuff for signing in. But one thing is it doesn't include the sign up or the registration route. So I created a gem which would add that for us just to make things easier. So we can run bundle add Tailwind registration to add this gem. And then we can run railsg Tailwind registration to generate the views and everything for Tailwind registration. All right, so perfect. Now we can go back here and we have a user model. Let's just run railsdb migrate to migrate this database, which will add the user model into that. And then after that, we can generate our second model for storing the items or the posts, because the user would have listings that they put up. So we can kind of think of what we want to call it. I might call it listing because that kind of makes sense to me. I think I've heard that term before on marketplace apps. Like you have a listing So we could call it that. So to generate this model, we're going to do the scaffold command. And the cool thing about scaffold is it's going to generate the views for creating a new item, for editing it, and listing it out on the page. It'll already have all of the basic code set up. We're probably going to want to style it a ton after that, but at least it gives us a good head start. So let's do Rails G scaffold. And then I'm going to put the name of the model, which will be listing. And then for a listing, we can have the name. Let's say that there's going to be a description of the product. So we could do even rich text, because in Rails, rich text just means you have a bunch of little helpful things that you can add on this text field, like bold, list items, even adding in images to the text field. So that could be helpful. Now, beside that, we probably also want to have images. So we can just do images type attachment, which is going to be using the built-in active storage library. And we are going to need to run a command after this to install action text and active storage real quick, but it's super easy. And then what else are we going to have? Well, of course, it's going to belong to a user. So let's do user belongs to set up that association. So each listing is going to have to belong to a user that created it. And then we'll do maybe a price. So you would set the price that you want to receive payment for the item, and we could do a decimal for price. Because it could go down to the decimal point to account for cents. And finally, we could do the location. So where are you selling this product from? We'll set the location of string. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use the geocoder gem to translate this location into X and Y coordinates so that we can display it on the map. So we're also going to need an X and a Y location. So we could do X, Y. Now I think these are going to be decimal numbers, so let's do X colon decimal and Y colon decimal so that we can store these after a user has created a listing. We'll transform the location into X and Y coordinates. Now, is there anything else that we want to have on a listing? Eventually we might have categories for listings, but for right now let's just keep it simple, leave it at this, and let's run the command to generate our listing. And then we're going to run Rails DB migrate to migrate the database to add our listing model into the database. But like I said, we also have to run this command, which is Rails action underscore text colon install to add action text. It's also going to add active storage at the same time, so we don't need to run the active storage command anymore. And then we're going to have to migrate the database again. So let's do that. And then we can go back into the app. And we still haven't set the root actually, so we have to go back to the code and set the root of our app. So inside the routes.rb, you'll notice now we have like all of these different routes that were added for the user and also the registration and then finally the listings. So let's go ahead and set the root to the listings index. So we can uncomment this root and then just set this to listings and the index action. And then if we go back into the app and we reload, it's going to prompt us to sign in before we view that page, which is fine. That's part of the built-in authentication. So all of the pages are going to require authentication. If we wanted to not require authentication, we could do that as well by skipping the require authentication action. But I think that's actually fine for our app. We can just go ahead and create an account and then we'll be able to load this. So actually we're getting an error because it's not loading bcrypt. I think that's because I had the server running the whole time in another tab. So we're going to want to stop the server and restart it so that it can grab all the new dependencies that it has. And when we reload, look, there's no issue. So now we can go ahead and create a new account. So I'm just going to do a little simple account. And let's go ahead and sign up. And this is what it looks like now. So it's just a super basic app, but we are able to create a listing. So we can do new listing and it has all of these different options here. So this is kind of fine. But the one thing that I want to handle first is I want to get rid of the user field from this page so that you're not able to like set what user it's going to belong to right from the page, because this is expecting a user ID. But since we already have a current user, we'll just create the listing from the current user. So that's the first thing I'm going to address. So let's go over to the app views, listings, and then the form partial. And inside of here, I'm going to just remove the user ID field from the page. And then we could go over to the app controllers listings controller. And I'm going to also go down here to the listing params where we're allowing the user ID. We don't want to allow that to be changed because that could be bad in the future if users are gonna change the user ID of a certain listing. It doesn't really make sense. So instead, we're going to change this up also. So for some of these things, like the new page, we can just display the current user's listing. So with the built-in authentication, this is what the current user looks like. It's actually a current class.user. So we're gonna do it this way instead of, normally it would be like current user, but anyways, this is fine. So we're gonna do current user.listings.new. Now I think this will cause an error because we need to set up that association between the user and the listings. Because whenever you scaffold something, we have the listing model right here and it belongs to user, but the user model doesn't know about the listings just yet. So we have to add in has many listings. And I'll also make this dependent destroy, which means if you delete the user account, it's going to delete the listings that were attached to it, which will protect from any errors. So now we have the listing getting set from the current user listings new. We can also go to the create action and set this listing current user.listings.new so that we're creating it for the user that is logged in. Now also, there's some other things in here that we want to handle, like when you update and edit, destroy. We're probably going to want to load this up from the current user for now. And then this would help because we wouldn't even need to authorize it, because if a user that doesn't own the listing tries to view it, it's just going to throw an error because it can't find the current user's listing. And also on the index, we're just showing all listings. We could scope that to the current user. And then later on, when we're doing the page where you can view all the listings, we could just do a different controller to view that, I guess. So this listings page is just going to only be for the current user's listing. Whoop, it looks like I did a title or a typo. If I go back to the listings controller, instead of doing this, we can just do current user.listings. Just show all of the listings for this user, which right now we don't have any. And then if I wanted to create the listing, I could just do it here. Another thing that we might not want to show is the X and Y. We don't really need a user to be setting that. All we need them to do is set the location. So I'm going to remove that from the view as well. So let's go back to app views, listings form. And then we can remove these bottom two fields, setting the X and Y. We can also go back to the listings controller and remove those from the params, just because we're not going to really be passing in X and Y coordinates in the params. And if we reload, oh, it looks like I accidentally removed the submit button instead of one of the fields. So let's go back. Yep, I accidentally removed the submit button. So I meant to just remove X and Y. And we can reload and boom. Here now we just have this simple listings form and we're going to be able to create our listing. Alright, so at this point we've just got the basic setup for our app. We added in user accounts and we also added in the listing model. So now we want to get a couple listings to test out this process with. So what I'll do is I'm going to look up some items on Craigslist. So I'm just going to look up Austin, Texas Craigslist. Let's just see what they have. So I'm going to start over by, we have like cars and trucks. I think that's a good place to start. So let's see what they got here. This is a cool looking car. How about this Challenger SRT? It's a little bit outdated, but why not? So we could just grab the name, the price that they're selling it for, and oh yeah, of course the images. So let's go ahead and download these images. So it looks like they just took them on their phone. Yep. So let's grab some images. These aren't really the best images, but okay. Alright, and they have like these things on the side, which might be important for us to add, like these kind of attributes of the car. But for right now, to keep it simple, just putting everything like that into the description is also just fine. See, we could drop it here and that's okay. As far as the location, another thing is they don't really show the exact location, which is a great idea because you wouldn't want to just say like, hey, I have this car at this certain address and broadcast that to the whole internet. So we might want to look into how we can not show the exact location. We can probably do that. So just for a test location, let's just open up maps and I'll find a random location to put this. Let's go inside of Google Maps. This is so annoying. Why don't they just... I wish this was easier to just grab a location. Well, you know what, this works. Home Depot. Let's grab this location, which they do not want to make it easy. Okay, I guess if I come in here, there we go. So I'll copy address, then we can go back to our listing over here and put in the location. And then we can just create listing, and boom, we now have a listing. So from here, we just want to work on displaying the location and everything. But since we're building Craigslist, we're going to want more than this. So we have this simple listings page. What I probably want to do is just create an explore page, which is similar to this page, although it'd be a little bit different because I just kind of want to do like a map. That's what I'm going to start with. So instead of just all of these different categories, we're going to do it a little bit different. Let's go ahead and add that new explore page. So to do that, we can use a generator if we want to. So we can just do RailsG controller instead of scaffold. And this is going to generate the controller and whatever pages we want to have. So let's just have an explore controller with a show action. We can generate this. Boom, and that's really all we need. We can restart the server, and then I'm going to go and modify the routes. So let's go into the config routes.rb, and I'm going to slightly modify this. So right now we have a get explore show. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a resource explore, and we're going to do only the show action. And I also have to hard code the controller to explore, because when you're using resource, Rails is going to look for a plural controller. So I just want to do the singular because that's what we generated. And if we reload, this should work. Oh, except for, wait, what am I doing? Actually, what we need is we need to set the root. So maybe we don't even need to do this resource now that I think about it. All right, we can get rid of that. Instead, we'll just set the root to go to the explore and the show action. But if you wanted to go to, like, let's say /explore, that's how you would do it with that resource. Anyways, we're going to set the root to the explore show page, and this is what it looks like now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come into there by going to app views, explore, and let's just say explore listings nearby for the H1. That's fine. And probably we're going to want a user to be able to, let's say, put in their location that they want to search for, but we can get to that in a second. And also be able to like just search by the name of, you know, the car or like whatever they want to find. But let's get into adding the map first of all. So that's the first thing I want to add. And to do that, we're going to need to add leaflet.js, which is the open source map library that I'm using, which is super helpful. Shout out to the people who do this. They're super helpful for making this because it means we don't need to use a paid service like Google Maps. We can just use this completely free, and all we have to do is add in the CSS and JavaScript and embed it. So what I'll do is let's go over to the views layouts application, and I'm going to go up into the head section and I'll drop in this code for leaflet.js. So we can add in the CSS, and we're also going to add in the JavaScript. Boom. So now we should have everything for leaflet configured. Now we just have to do a little bit of JavaScript, of our own JavaScript to implement the map and to initialize it. So first of all, we need a div to attach it to, and we need to set a height. So let's go back to the Explore show page, and I'll add in this div. Let's just do a div. Give it an ID of map. Do width full height 50 view height, and then let's just do a background color to make sure that it even is showing up. Real quick. Boom, this is what it looks like. All right, not really what I was going for. I think we need to set the div to use a width full. Why don't we just do flex call? We're at it, and there we go. It's a little bit better. And I might do a larger height than just 50. Let's do like 70 because I want it to really take up most of the page. So that should be fine. We could also add some margin on it if we wanted. And then what I'll do is inside of this container, I'll just initialize the full map. So to initialize this with JavaScript, I'm going to add a stimulus controller. So first of all, let's go to the terminal and I'm going to generate a new stimulus controller by doing Rails-G-Stimulus. I'm just going to call this the map controller. So this is going to be almost identical to my last video, just at the start, but then we're going to go further than that. So on this map, let's add data-controller equals map, which will connect our map. So that's perfect. And then what we'll do is we'll go over to the controllers, or not controllers, we're going to go to the app JavaScript controllers. And you'll see that we have a new map controller file. And inside of this map controller, we can add in the code to initialize our map, which is right down here. So we need to drop this code in. So we're going to set the map, and then we will set this layer, which is to show the attribution, which that's important. Then we have markers, polygons. So if you want to do a marker, we could do this, or we could do the circle, which is probably a better idea. Like that's how Craigslist works, so it doesn't give out the exact location, which is probably better. So we can go ahead and do the circle for each one. Boom. This is just going to be sample data, by the way, for now. And we can get into implementing the real data in a second. So let's reload. Boom, this is what it looks like. So ultimately what we really want is we want to be able to find the items nearby. And we also want to scope the map to a certain location. So right off the bat, let's start adding in some stuff for that. So we might just add a little search field at the top. And I said I was going to use Flowbyte. That's what I want to use for components. So let's go over to Flowbyte real quick. So we can go to flowbyte.com. And I want to go to the Get Started section first for Rails. So we can get started with Flowbyte. And we're going to do it via the import map method. We can go back to the code, go over to the config import map.rb, and I'm going to add this pin Flowbyte to the CDN location. And then we also need to import Flowbyte into our application.js. So that's over in the app JavaScript application.js file. Right underneath all of our other imports, we're going to import Flowbyte. And that should be good. Then we can start right away using their components. So we can go back to explore components, and really I just want like an input field. Super basic, but that's all I really need, is just a default input. So we can grab one of these. And realistically, what I could do is I could just grab the classes off of here, because I don't really want the HTML. I'm going to use a form helper anyways. So what we'll do, we can drop this in, why not? And I'll just update it. So underneath here, I'm going to set up the form. So let's do form with URL. I'm going to use a placeholder for now, and then we'll set the actual URL. Let's do form. And let's go ahead and just add in form setup. So I think I'm going to do flex. So we'll stack the items next to each other. Like we'll put the submit on the right, text field on the left. Flex with full cap to center. And then we'll do a flex call for the input, so we can have the label on top if we want the label. Although honestly, we don't really need a label per se, but why not? So then we'll do form.label, and then we're going to use location as the field that we're going to look for, and then we can drop in the class from up there. So let's go ahead and copy this label class, drop it in here. And then we're going to do the form.text fields. So this is where they're actually going to put in the location that they're going to search for. Let's put the styling from up here. Boom. We now have a input. So let's reload, and we should see our location input. Now it's kind of small for whatever reason. Maybe because the form width isn't really styled all the way. I'm trying to add a class width full on this. No, still, I think it's the text field actually. If I do width full on this, it's probably going to go, whoa, no, it's still not going. Maybe it's this flex call, it's not going far enough. There we go. So now it goes the full way, although ultimately we don't want it to be that big. Probably we can do like a max width small on this. So so it only takes up a certain amount, so that's probably fine. We have the location, and then we just need the submit button. So we could just simply add in f.submit, and then we can put search as the text here. Except for it's not f, we did the form this time. So whatever you called that variable. Okay, so this is what it looks like, search. Now I want to add some styling, so let's go over to Flowbyte and grab a button component. Let's just do the default button. So I'm going to copy the styling here. I'm going to set this via class. I'm going to take off my headphones because those are kind of, it's making a weird noise. All right. There we go. So this is what it looks like now. I guess what's happening is we're centering it, which isn't really right. Also, we're not getting a cursor effect. So I'm going to go and add cursor dash pointer. And then up on this top level flex, I think I'm going to do items end instead of item center. So we'll push the button down, and I think the button has margin on it. I want to just get rid of this margin. There's no reason for that margin. There we go. So now we just have the field and the search button. I feel like we could also make it larger. Oh. There we go. Anyways, we can set the location. So let's say I want to search for like Austin, Texas. Click search. That should actually go over there and pull up the correct location. Right now it's not doing anything. So we're going to want to try to figure out how we can get this to work. So first of all, I think we might just post to our current URL. So we could use URL for, and then we could do method get. So it's just going to make a get request to the same exact URL that we're on. Should also, I think, put the content up in the parameter, as you can see. So that does work. Now we just need to scope the page, and we could also fill this text field with whatever location is up in the param. Let's go ahead and do that too. So we say value is params location. Just to kind of show that you're looking for that same location. And then if a user does change it, it would update to the new one. So that is cool. It's working. Now we just need to set the location for the map. So I think now is where we're going to get into using the geocoder gem. So let's go and look up the geocoder gem. It's right here. And we're going to do something like this with the results. So first of all, we need to add the geocoder gem to our app. So I'm going to do this via bundle add. So we'll go back to the terminal and do bundle add geocoder. Boom, we now have the geocoder gem. And then we can go and add this code into the console or into the controller for now. So let's go to the app controllers, explore controller. And then what we'll do is we'll check if params location present. We can grab these results. So we'll just search for the params location, grab the first coordinates, and these would be the coordinates. We just call them map coordinates, or we could specify them in more detail. So it's going to be like the X and Y, or latitude, longitude. So that should be fine. I guess I was calling it X and Y, but it's more latitude and longitude, but I think it's basically the same exact thing. Whatever you want to call it. But we could just store it like this, that's fine. And then if we go back to the show page, we would pass this through into our map controller. So we could just pass it through like data-map X value. The first one. Now, what if the map coordinates are empty? That's where this becomes a little tricky. Maybe we do just want to set like map X equals coordinate 0, map Y equals the other coordinate, which would be 1. And we can just pass this in, and if it is nil, it just wouldn't show up at all. Do data map Y value equals Y. Then we can go over to the JavaScript by going to app JavaScript controllers, map controller, and we can pass these through by setting the values. Let's say static values equals X, which would be a number, and Y would be a number. And then what we can do is we can set these here. Though we might want to have a default value. So what I did for default values is I just put like an X and a Y, say X map, Y map. So we define these empty variables, and then we'll just check if, actually we can define these to the default, which is what we have here anyways. But then we'll check if this dot X value not equal to blank, and this dot Y value not equal to blank. We can redefine these. Just kind of adds that fallback. That should work, and then we'll just pass these in here by doing X map. Let's see if this works. Reload, boom, it is in Austin, so it does totally work. For Dallas, boom, everything's working very nicely, and it's pretty fast too. Now I don't know, we might get rate limited if we're like running this so often, but we can always figure that out later. So now that we have this working, we probably just want to work on displaying the nearby locations as well. So we have these coordinates. Now we just need to grab the listing, which right now we aren't even setting the X and Y on the listing. So we need to do that also. So let me go back into geocoder and see if there's anything that we can use. So, oh right, look, we can say geocoded by, and then we can add a after validation. So I guess this is an easier way to do it. Let's try to use this geocoded by location. So let's go over to the app models, listing.rb. We can add the geocoded by, and we're going to set this to location. And then we can also do the after validation geocode. And let's add some validation too, just to make sure that we have a location. So we can say validates presence of location. Go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to go to the console and see if we can trigger this manually. So I can just say listing.last.save. And that should try to set it, although now it's saying undefined method latitude because we didn't call it latitude, we called it X and Y. So I wonder if we can update the fields, because I didn't call it latitude and longitude. Well, we could also just do our own after validation by doing this code here. Say after validation geocode X and Y. This will be a method that we define down here. Geocode X and Y. Now, one thing is it's going to happen every time that you update the listing, which I guess is fine, but if there wasn't a change, then it doesn't really make sense to do it every time. But we can always fix this later. So once we get the coordinates, we can say chords equals this, X equals chords. Actually, we can just define these, say self.x equals chords 0, self.y equals chords 1, and that's not a 0, that's an O. And finally, we can save. So that should set up the X and Y for a listing. I'm gonna go ahead and go back to the console, do listing.last.save. Although wait, this might do an infinite loop now that I think about this. I think it's just gonna loop because when we save, it's gonna do validation again. It's gonna keep going infinitely. Probably not a great idea. So, yeah, I wonder how you would fix that. I'll save without validation. Ooh, you could say validate false. That's funny. Just say save, validate false. I don't actually know if that works. Turn off validations. Oh hey, that did work. Now I don't think that that's a good way to do it. Also, it looks like it did set the X and Y, so that's good. But at the same time, because we're doing after validation, we know that the validations already went through. But in this case, we're just gonna save it again, but we're not gonna validate to prevent the infinite glitch. So that should be fine. And then finally, back on the controllers page, we're gonna load up the relevant listings. Here we set listings, you know, to the listings that are close by. So now I have to look into how can we find the nearby locations. How do we do this? With any geocoded objects, you can do the following. I feel like they need our latitude and longitude method though. That's the annoying part. Venues within. So close to showing this, but I don't know if I should have used a different name for the fields. So we can just try though. We can try to do this near location. So it would be something like this. Listing.near map X, map Y. Now we might just get an error because we don't have the latitude longitude thing, and if that's the case, we can always just rename our fields. So I mean, it's not like we didn't get an error, but it looks like it might not be working. Let's see. So if I go to the views show and I try to just display the count, it should be at least one listing. Nope, we get the error because it's trying to search for latitude, longitude. So I guess we just have to rename our field. That's fine. So what we'll do is we'll do RailsDB rollback. Do it, what, 3 times to get back to our listings. I think that might also drop our listing model that we have, so we're gonna have to remake that, which is kind of annoying. But it's okay. So now instead of a decimal, it's gonna be latitude, longitude. Okay, and that should be fine. And we'll just migrate the database. We're gonna have to go and update wherever we were setting the X and Y. So that I think that's only in the listing model. Say it's self.latitude, self.longitude. Okay. And I think at this point we don't even need to have a custom method, which is super helpful. Instead we can just do the after validation geocode. So that slims down our model. And I think that's all we have to do. Now let's go back in here and I'll go back to the listings. I think we're gonna lose that listing that we created, which is annoying, but we can redo it. Let's go back to Craigslist. Let's just go with the first one because I'm already tired right now. It's gonna be 4,900. And images, of course. I don't even know if I set the images on the last one. Let's go ahead and drop in these images. So we're gonna, of course, grab the ones that are about the car, not the SRT. Drop those images in. Oh, I really closed it out. It's annoying. Let's go back. Cars and trucks. It's this one. We'll go ahead and grab the information here. Boom. And then for location, we need an address. I'll just use the same one since it's conveniently pre-filled. And then let's do create listing. Hopefully there's no error. And of course there's an error, but that's just on the show page, so that's fine. Let's go And let's just delete that real quick. So we go to the views, listings, underscore listing. That's where we're displaying all the stuff, which is how the scaffold works. So if we just do that, it's not going to cause an error anymore. And we do have it showing on the listings page. That's not really where we're showing it. We want to go back to the main page and make sure that we can view listings for a location. So if I search in Austin, it should be displaying listings in this location. Now, I don't know if it's actually, it looks like it might not be showing because I thought we were displaying it. Maybe we weren't displaying it. If I do listings.count above our form, nope, we do get an error. So it's saying it doesn't like the method. So maybe it's because SQLite. When running queries on SQLite, distance and bearing are provided for consistency only. It looks like there's an issue with SQLite. You can even look up this exact error. You're like, why are we having an issue? Here we go. Someone had this issue. This was back in 2011. I don't know if they have just an option. Distance queries. Yeah, we're getting some sort of issue here. If we go to explore, we're trying to do .near, but it looks like it doesn't like this. Oh, another option? Maybe instead of passing coordinates, why don't we just, like, why are we doing that? Let's just try to pass Graham's location. And it'll just redo the whole search that way. Come on. Now it's doing like two searches at once, I think, and it also doesn't like that. Geocoder with SQLite 3 near. Requires you to add geocoded by or reverse geocoded by. Oh, so maybe we need reverse geocoded by. So we go to listing and do the geocoded by, reverse geocoded by. I don't know, maybe that will fix it. Nope. I'm gonna do a safety operator here. Still getting error. So yeah, I have no idea. Hey everybody, so I'm continuing on this, and for whatever reason, I just figured out a little solution. So apparently, I'm able to loop over the listings, but I'm not able to run anything like count on it, which it looks like that was causing the error. So if you try to use .count on this, it's going to throw an error for whatever reason. I have no idea why, but it looks like we should be able to do whatever we need to on the items. And if we did want to count them, I think we can do .size, which is a built-in Ruby method. And as you can see, that doesn't cause an error. But .count is going to actually try to do a SQL query, so that's why that's not working. But in that case, we are getting the listings, and we should be able to proceed from this point. All right, and the next thing I want to do is I want to just display all of the listings for a particular location on the map. And we could either do that with the circles, or we could do the marker like I showed you before. I might just do a marker, I'm not gonna lie, just to keep this a little bit simpler. But then maybe when you click on an item, we could just show the circle or something. I don't know, we could figure it out. Anyways, let's get straight into this. So what we really need to do is we need to pass to the JavaScript, to our map, an array of all of the listings coordinates. That's all we have to do. So we can just pass this through like data map, what do we want to call it? Since it's gonna be, what do we call it? It's not the pop-up. It's actually a marker. That's what it is, marker. So we could just say data map marker coordinates, or we could just say like markers value, and this is gonna be an array. So let's define this inside of the Explorer controller. We can create our array because we probably also want to include like the name of the item for that little pop-up. So when you click on it, we can show like, this is what's at that place for sale. So to do that, let's create another variable. Let's just call this listing data. How about that? Listing data equals, and we're going to do @listing.map because we're going to want to return an array. So let's just map over the listing. We're just going to iterate through, and then inside of this map we can return a hash, and we can even do something like to.json, but why don't we just do a hash by hand because that's not that big of a deal. So we can pass in the x. Now I know we did want to switch this over to latitude because that's the variable, but this is probably fine for now. So the x, the y is going to be the longitude, and then we're going to do the name, which will be listing.name. And, or actually, since this might be just broad, like I don't want to make this map controller just confined to listings. Why don't we just say like pop-up message? And then this, if you're going to reuse this code, you could just use the pop-up message. And this will just be like the name with the price. Let's do number to currency, stick.price. And this should be good. So now all we have to do is pass this listing data into our JavaScript. So let's pass it by saying data map dash data value. And then we'll just stick in our data variable. And then let's go over to the JavaScript. So go to app JavaScript, controllers, map controller.js. And inside of here, now we can loop over our data. But first of all, let's define it. So say data is going to be type array. And then after we define the map, let's go ahead and we'll let this do its thing so we can put the attribution. All right, I'm also going to switch from using var to use this .map instead, because why not? And we're not going to do the circle, so let's get rid of this. And let's go and grab the code for our marker. So that would be right here. Drop it in, and then really what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looping over the data. So first let's check if we have it. So if this dot has data value, so if we have that data value, then we can go ahead and loop over it. So say this dot data value dot for each value, and then we'll go and we'll drop in the value. So right in here we can add it to the map, but we're going to need to use the correct thing. So let's do map dot, or not, we're going to do value dot x, value dot y, and then the message is going to be the value dot pop up message, like we defined inside of our controller. So let's see if this works. If I reload, We get undefined method map for nil. Whoops. So I think I did a typo. I did listing instead of listings. So let me fix that. And now we get an issue undefined method number to currency. So number to currency is usually available on the view, but I guess it's not available in the controller because we don't have that helper. That's fine. We don't even really need to use that. Let's just put a $sign before our price, and that's basically what number to currency does anyways. So now if I search, I'm not seeing the marker. If I look in the console, it looks like we get an error. Expected property name. So I guess what's happening is there's some sort of issue with the JSON, I guess. I wonder if that's happening right here when we're adding the map value, when we're looping. So let me try to do that let me try to comment that out and reload. So okay, now it's working. So it looks like maybe when we're calling the value, it's causing an error. So let's just go inside of here and console log whatever the value is. We can reload, and we're just getting an error when we try to console log the value. So that's not good. Let's just comment out this whole loop, and then we can console log this.data value and see what that looks like. So I guess when we even try to call that, it's throwing an error, so it doesn't like any of this. Interesting. So maybe it needs this to be JSON. Let's try to convert this to JSON before we stick it in the array. Oh, and that does work. So I guess we just need an array of JSON because there was some sort of issue there with the spacing or whatever. So now we should be good. The only thing is when we loop over this, we're gonna have to parse the value before we use it. So let's just say item, let item equals. Now I don't even remember how to do JSON parse. I guess it's literally just like the same as Ruby, JSON.parse value. And then instead of using the value, we're just gonna use the item, which is the parse JSON. Check it out, 2012 Nissan Marumi. So that's beautiful. It's working exactly like we wanted to. So at this point, I mean, this is pretty good. We got this working. So now we can just go and try to add more listings and, you know, see where things go from there. So right off the bat, we probably want to add in like a nav bar or something. So let's go to Flowbyte and grab a nav bar real quick. So we have nav bars down here. All right, this one looks good, the sticky nav bar. Let's go grab that. And let's go over to the layouts application. And let's create a partial inside the layouts folder called _ navbar.html_b. Drop this code in, and then render it at the top of the body. So render layouts / navbar. Now we should have a navbar up at the top, just like that, which is working. So now I'm gonna go over to the navbar partial and let's try to change a few things. Like instead of saying Flowbyte, we can say whatever the name of our app, which we called it Ruby List, I guess. Ruby List. And yeah, these other links, those aren't really important, but I want to make this get started. Instead of that, I want it to be like create listing. So let me figure out where the get started is. Here it is. And let's just change this to create listing. I'm also going to change it from a button into an H tag. So we can actually have it navigate to the right path, which is going to be the new _ listing path. And then boom, once you're on here, you can easily click here to create a listing. Now, I'm probably going to get rid of a lot of the other paths, although I guess this is fine. You can manage your own listings, so that's probably cool. Well, let's make that home link not go to Flowbyte. Make it go to the main route. And we can also add in the Ruby logo if we wanted to. I think I have a Ruby logo in here. Ruby.png. Yeah, we have tons of Ruby logos. So we can easily go and drag that into the assets images. Boom, we now have a Ruby logo, and then I'll just stick this instead of the source that they have. I'll just pass in the asset URL, ruby.png. As simple as that. Change that alt tag as well for the accessibility. And boom, we now have a Ruby list set up, which is pretty nice. Now we are just defaulting it still to London, which is whatever. You guys can choose whatever default location you want, of course. But if you go to Austin, here's all the listings. Now I'm gonna go and create some more listings so we can test this out. So let's go and grab some more items. and Austin Maps, because I need a location to use. So let's do like over here at this park. So grab that location, shove it in here. Let's do this car. Look, this was pretty recent, 14 minutes ago. I don't know why the title is just clean. Clean title in hand. Look, that's hilarious. So when they were putting their listing, it said like enter title, and he put clean instead because he didn't know what it means. That's funny. So apparently this is clean, whatever that means. And $18,000 for this car, but it's a brand new car. So yeah, if he says clean, no issues, new car, probably means that it's not clean. I don't know. He could have at least put the name of the car on it, right? Okay, so I don't even know if these are the right images. Let's just drop them in. And then this, the description is so funny. Ready to go. Let's create listing. And boom, we've created our listing. If we go back to the map and go back to our location, check it out. We have 2 different listings on here. This is cool. Let's grab some more. Oh, look at this. That's a cool car. For only $2,000, you can get a car from the 1960s. That's not a bad idea. Hot rod. I have no idea if this thing drives. Probably does not. But I mean, for a vintage car, wouldn't you want to drive around town in that? Or even just park it in your driveway and just sit in it. Might be worth $2,000. All right, let's drop in the name. Okay, we're gonna go create another listing. So this is name. This is description. We got those images, which I'm just gonna do it this way. Now, one thing we haven't done is we haven't done like the show page. See how this is basically the show page? We could probably try to add something like this in real quick, but I don't know. I might even leave it for another video because this felt like it's been too long just messing with all this stuff. But this is so cool how we already got it to this point. I mean, like, that is the show page, but the thing is, this is more of like the personal show page. So eventually we probably want it to be like, we click on here, and then there's a link to actually go to the page. So you have to figure out how to do that. And it might even be like this bind pop-up. This could probably be HTML if you think about it, which means we could almost like render a partial here or something, if that's possible. Not really sure how we would do this, but it's probably possible. So like render, render partial, pop-up message. Well, this would be inside of listings, pop-up message, locals, listing. I wonder if this would work. This would be cool if it would work. So I'm gonna create a new partial underscore pop-up message.html.brb. Reload. Oh, it doesn't like this. Render was called 2 times. Yeah, that's what I was worried about. Now I think there's another way to render. If we can find that other way to render, there's like 2 render methods. Because you have the main render on the controller, but then you have render inside the partial. Action view template render. So technically, if we call it in that way, so if we say action view template render, undefined method render. Whoops. So yeah, that's not the template. It would be like action view helper, right? I honestly have no idea how to render partial inside of controller or outside of view. That's what I need to do. Not render view from outside of. how to render a partial inside of a controller. Like, that's such a crazy thing to want to do. Another way is to use view components, but I don't want to just do view components, right? So what class is the render method inside of the views? We need like action view helper render method. I think it's this, right? Action view helper rendering helper render. So if we just take this whole thing, and we just replace these slashes with double dashes, and then this just render. This is kind of a crazy way to do this. Let's see. And I don't even know if it'll work at the end. No, it says undefined method render. Okay, it doesn't like this. So we'd almost, I mean, I don't even know. Try colon colon. That's definitely not going to work. It doesn't even make any sense. All right. Huh. Maybe if we render it with a helper method. Pop-up message content. Well, we don't need the camel case. Pop-up message, and we pass in listing, and then pop-up message is going to be a helper. We can define in app helpers, application helper. Because I think I remember being able to render a partial from here because it has a different scope than the controller. We render partial listing slash pop-up message and pass the locals of listing. And now it says undefined method pop-up message for application. So then if we include application helper inside of the controller, how would that work? No. Still doesn't like that. Maybe we have to extend it. There's like two different things you can extend and you can include. I think for a module you want to extend, but then it says no, because render, you're trying to call the same render method, so that doesn't even help at all. Okay, of course that wouldn't work. But let's go back. I want to really find out how to use render inside of here, even though it's probably like the worst way to do this. How to render a partial inside of Rails controller. Return, you have to return first. That doesn't even make any sense. Ooh, look, try this in the console. Bruh. So this is kind of... this is pretty intense. Initials. So we have to do all of this just to get it to work. Alright. This is definitely not the right way to do this. But apparently... we already have the route helper, so we don't need that. But apparently we could do avhelper.render. Oh, this just looks insane. Wrong number of arguments. So it doesn't like this. Given 1, expected 3. Action view base. Wait, I literally had the method right here. Oh, we might have to pass in just an empty object. No, given 2, expected 3. So maybe 2 empty objects. Nope. Quit out of here. Given 2, expected 3. So it doesn't like this either. Alright, this is definitely not the right way to do this. Now, alright, another idea which this is a crazy idea. We could do the assembling of the data on the Explore show page, which is probably a terrible way to do this, but sometimes you got to do things that are crazy. So what I mean is, like, we could say define the map data, or no, we call it listing data equals, and then we'll just grab the listings.map, or actually let's just do listings.each do. No wait, that's not right. Listings map. So we'll actually do it this way. Map listing. I just don't know. Are we gonna be able to do like a block like this? I honestly have no idea. This is getting insane. I don't think we would. I think we'd have to just do like a really ugly, long embedded Ruby, which looks crazy. Listing.x, y, listing.y, and then pop-up message is going to be that same code that we've done like a couple times, rendering the partial of listings pop-up message, and then passing in the locals listing. And now it's saying that it doesn't know about this. Okay, I think map. Wait, it should know about the listing. Now that's kind of weird. Listings.map. Oh, don't you have to say do? And then you have to say end? Yeah, that's what's happening. And then it's not X, it's latitude and longitude. Longitude. Still saying undefined method X. All right. Maybe I could do like the block syntax. This is getting crazy. I think I misspelled latitude. Latitude. Yo, we actually got it, but now we're not seeing anything on the map, so there's some sort of issue. If we go in the console, it's saying expected property name. Okay, so it's again, we need to turn this to JSON, so we have to say .to.json. I don't even know what to expect. So it's kind of working, but now we just don't see any. That's where I was saying, like, I don't even know if this is gonna work. Just sticking HTML inside of here. Oh wait, no, I think it is. It totally is. We just haven't put anything inside of the pop-up message. So now we can totally like do Tailwind styling inside of here. We somehow got this to work, even though it's not clean. We'll try to fix this up later. We'll do listing.name, listing.price, and then even like a link to view listing, which would go to, let's just make it a placeholder for now. See how that works. Hey, look at that. It totally works. Now it looks like the link to, funnily enough, okay, no wait, it is working. I thought it wasn't working. It totally is working. This is crazy. Just have to make this a little darker. I could probably give it a width too. Check it out, it's actually working. And I'm sure we could do an image tag as well. Image tag for listing.images.first if listing.images.any. Bam. Now that's, if that's not Craigslist, I don't know what is. Yeah, that's not bad, right? There's a lot of padding between the items, which is kind of weird, kind of unexpected. Why would there be so much padding? But I guess it's not a big deal. Try to inspect, see what's going on. Like, why is there just so much padding between each p tag? Like, could try to change this from a P to a div. Let's see if that helps. There we go. It does help. And then the other cool thing is now we can actually do number to currency right inside the partial. Bam, we got the money. Probably make this green. We can do all sorts of styling. Like we can go back to Flowbyte and grab the button component. Get a nice colorful button. So let's do a green button this time. Bam. Drop this in on the link. Check out that button. Although I think it's, wait, what happened? Why can you like not see the text? Maybe we're doing something in here that's messing up the link because the text is weird. Let's try to just do like text white. Still, no, there's something messing up the link text. I think it's probably, it has to do with the pop-up with like leaflet.js. I don't know. Why does that button look weird? Look, leaflet container. It looks like we are doing some stuff here. There's actually a color on the on any links inside of it will become blue. That's not good. So I don't really know how to force it. Or no, not important. That's what you usually do in CSS. Oh look, you can add a pound sign at the end of the class. Do pound sign on it. That's so cool. That's something I never knew. And it works. And we can click on it. Click. Probably what we want to do is we want to add like, let's do a break in between. And then we can do an MR auto to kind of push it to the left. Yeah, that's not bad. This is Craigslist right here. So from here, I mean, there's plenty of things to do, but this is pretty cool. Oh, so we got our first issue. When we go back, if there's no listings, it's going to cause an error. So what we'll do is we'll wrap this. We'll say if listings. And let's also check .any on it. So if there's any listings, well, I guess if it's nil, there's no listing. So we can just check if at listings. Right? There we go. There's no listings in London right now. We go over to Austin, Texas, or even just Austin. Boom, pops up our listings. This is pretty cool, guys. There's obviously more things we can do, like adding in text search, but we don't have a lot of listings to go through. So I might try to come together with like a test database, but I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll definitely put the source code online. So if you enjoyed it, you can go check out the source code, mess around with this app, create your own type of marketplace. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I'm glad I was able to get through that error, which wasn't really an error once we figured out. You just can't call .count on the association because that was breaking it. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed.